I get a call from my younger sister asking, like, where are you guys? So I answer it and I look out the window and I'm like looking for her. And as soon as I see her, I said, look at the clown in the window. And so she looks at my nanny's house and she looks at my uncle's house and she goes, I don't see you anywhere. Where are you? And I'm like, well, look at the clown in the window. Like, you can't see me. And then finally I press my nose up against the glass and I'm just sitting there, looking and being all silly. I got it with my toe. Okay, you've never played a DS game, have you?
I watched you play them.
Okay, do you remember Zelda? When he's like hitting at trees and like monsters? Just whacking the monsters. 3, 2, 1. I guess I'm closer, so it feels like I'm like out of frame, but I'm not. Okay. Welcome back to
it. Oh. You said that.
Right.
Was that right? No.
Wait, no, yeah, okay. We haven't done one of these in so long.
I know.
Hey, kitty.
I heard his mouth. As you knocked that cup over. I fucking knew I saw it coming. At least it was empty.
Was he even standing there anymore when I threw the pillow? Oh my gosh.
I almost faked it.
That's okay. Good job.
We're still recording.
Even though you're a Virgo.
It looks
actually looks
fuck.
cute.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dang.
It looks curly as fuck.
Did you put it up when it was wet?
No. That's just what my hair does.
Okay, Miss Debbie Ryan over here. Welcome back to
It's Our Destiny.
Welcome back to
It's Our Destiny
To Be Shady
podcast.
In this video, we are going to be talking about molestation, sexual occurrences. There will be 3 parts to this video, ending this season 1, and we will start back up with season 2. We want to thank you guys for
sticking around.
Yep, for the entire adventure that we're going to be going through.
We know it's been a very long pause between episodes. Lots of life stuff happening,
which we will get into later on. It's kind of like a time of events that have happened, so it'll be more towards the end, but you'll still know. We'll maybe even recreate this video and explain kind of what's been going on. Mm-hmm. Okay. So to get into it, so today is going to be kind of like going about my biological father and meeting him and the story behind that and going into all of that. Okay. So it's kind of a really hard subject for me to still talk about because I struggle partially with this still, even though there's people in my life that I can trust, that it's hard for me to kind of unsee what could happen.
Yeah.
And with me having 2 daughters, it's really, really a struggle.
100%.
I want to get into before the summer started because it's also part of episode 2.
Okay.
I'd been dating my long-term high school boyfriend, which in high school, you think you're in love, you have these relationships where you believe you're going to be together forever, even though 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work out like that. I mean, props to the people who have been together since high school.
Like my other 2 friends who've been together since I was 4.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, props to them for sticking with it.
Yeah.
But it started with my high school boyfriend. It was my freshman year in high school. We had been dating for a year. We started to get more serious. Like I was in tennis as an extracurricular activity after school. We had been talking about maybe getting even more serious and going into the sexual part of a relationship. Well, before doing so, my biological father had come into my life, and he wanted to meet us. Well, throughout my entire life, since I was 3, after my mom had left him, he signed his rights away to my younger sister, that's also his biological daughter. So he would claim me until I was 18, and then once I turned 18, he would claim my younger sister until she turned 18, which she's 2 years younger than me, so whatever. As long as he signed his rights away, my mom was okay with that. Since I was 3 up until I was 15, he was in and out of jail, he was traveling a lot, he was working on oil rigs, living his own life, doing his own thing. The outcome of that happening, basically he had 6 children that were all girls. Okay. He's never really been in contact with any of them except for the oldest daughter. And then I don't know what happened along the line, but he either reached out or my mom reached out because my sister was wanting to know who he was.
Yep.
So forth. So we all began talking. It got to the point where I would talk to him on the phone and just kind of hear his life story. I'd get upset because he'd always like talk about my stepdad in a negative way. And so I was like, dude, I don't even want to talk to you. Like, I don't really care for you. You've never been in my life, type of situation. That's how I viewed it. I'm like, you're not my dad. Sorry that you want to be now, but you're not. And I've never seen you.
That chance.
Yeah, I've never seen you as my dad. So he makes a plan. I believe it was the summer of 2016. He makes the plan to go down for us to travel down there and visit him for 3 months this summer before starting school again. Well, my parents took us to Pueblo, Colorado, where we met with my uncle, one of my uncles, my mom's biological brother, and he had driven us the rest of the way there. Well, we had gotten there at 3 in the morning, and everything, we just kind of piled all of our stuff into the house. We laid on the couches. We slept that night. And then our stepmom, technically, was supposed to come pick us up and bring us to their house. So she wasn't coming that morning. She was coming the next day so that we could hang out with my family before going over there. So we slept through the night. I woke up about 10 in the morning, roughly around there. And then my other uncle, who is my mom's second cousin, let's nickname him Uncle Joe, just for this sake, so that we're not getting confused between uncles. My Uncle Joe came over to my nanny's house, and like his side of the family would always visit my nanny. So, and he only lived 2 blocks away from my nanny, so he'd come over quite often. Him and my other uncle, my mom's other brother, they got along really well. They always hung out together. They used to babysit us. Like, I would have memories of them playing Guitar Hero with us, flying like these little, like, not RC, electric helicopter things. Yeah, like kind of like a drone, but without a camera.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I had gotten it for my birthday because I loved it so much. And my uncle and my Uncle Joe would always, fly it, and just, they were the coolest uncles ever. Going into it, me and my younger sister met up with my Uncle Joe, and he had mentioned something about, like, not forest fires, I guess, because like all out there it's all flat and everything. They don't even have like a single tree. Plane fires. Yeah, basically on both sides of town though. So he asked us if we wanted to go see them, and we had agreed. Well, before going out there, we had stopped by, I think it was McDonald's, and each of us, we all got a caramel frappe. Well, we were driving out there, and somewhere along the line, he stopped on the side of the road and asked me if I wanted to drive. And since I was 15, I was like, well, yeah, I need the practice, cool.
Yeah.
So I hop in the car. Worst mistake of my life. Like, it was awful. Anyway, so he hops in the passenger seat, and he has my younger sister. So on the way to the drive,
Mm-hmm.
It was him in the driver's seat, my younger sister in the passenger seat, and then I was in the back behind my younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had stopped, it was me in the driver's seat, my Uncle Joe in the passenger seat, and my younger sister on his lap in the passenger seat. No seatbelts, except for me, because I was being safe, and he just like had his arm around her like a seatbelt in a way.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like it wasn't really awkward because my whole family has a really close dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And with my stepfather, it's never been like a weird thing. Like we still, as adults, sit on his laps when we are needing comfort, and it's not a weird thing. It's just
a good relationship with your dad.
yeah. Well, with him, that's kind of how I viewed it, but then it felt a little awkward with the way that he was holding her, like he was holding her right here and right here.
Yeah.
Well, I start driving and then I start daydreaming about cows walking out into the road because I had seen some on the side of the road. So like I'm about to go off into the shoulder and then I'm like, oh shoot. And so I get back onto the road. And then he's like, okay, that's enough practice for today. So we all get back in exactly where we were sitting originally.
Yeah.
And then we drive to the other side of town. Can't remember what time we got back. I think we got back around 7 p.m. in the evening. It's been like so long since it's been 8 years since this has happened.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
I know, it is insane. It doesn't feel like that long because you still like have the memory of it, but
yeah,
it's like details fade as you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it was either 7 or 8 that we got back into town. We ate dinner over at my mom's brother's house, my uncle. He came over and ate as well. After that, we kind of hung out. Like my nanny lives right here, and my uncle lives in this house right here with my aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this middle part of the yard where there's like camping chairs, an old camper, an old, I think it was like a Bronco, it was orange in color. So we were sitting in that yard in lawn chairs, and my younger sister comes out and sits on my Uncle Joe's lap because there was 3 lawn chairs, but she sits in his lap.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, well, I want to go for a walk. Let's go see my wife because he was married. So we head over to the Dollar General that's over there. I think it's called, I don't want, I want to say it's Family Dollar over there too, but I can't really.
Anyways, a dollar store.
Yeah, we head over there. We, take a look around, and then we head to Allsup's where his wife works. He goes and gets a drink, and he's talking to his wife, and we're looking around the store, because it's been a while since we've seen that Allsup's. And then we finally start heading back. Well, then my Uncle Joe, who I've always thought had a really close relationship with my other uncle, started talking like mad crap on him, saying that he had really greasy hair and that he had a crush on the girl from the Family Dollar, like the one that we saw at the cash register, and saying like, oh, I can't imagine a girl ever liking him, even though you could tell like the way that she would flirt and like how happy she was, like. So my sister got upset, goes out into the front yard. Me and him go out into the backyard. I think it's like 8 or 9 o'clock at this point, and you could hear her playing basketball, like aggressively, very upset. And they had a little basketball hoop across the street, like in that lot right there, kind of on the edge by the road. And just hear her like, oh my gosh, I felt so bad. And I was just like sitting there in shock because I really thought that it was like a close family dynamic and that he would never say something like that and kind of be mean. So we go back into the yard, or in between the yards, and he's looking around and he sees the camper that my papa used to own. And he's like, let's go check that out. I haven't been in there in a while. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I turn on my phone flashlight, and the first thing I see is like, as you're walking into the door, is a sink right here, kind of like a counter area, but has a sink on it. I can't remember the layout of the kitchen, but I remember that the fridge is on this side. And then you have your hallway, you have your bathroom to the right, and at the very end of the hallway is a bed. And the roof you could see was just like concaved in. There was leaves all over the bed. And then to your right, there was a big couch right there with some cushions. It looked absolutely disgusting, old, kind of like weather. I don't want to say
weathered.
Yeah, weathered. I get a call from my younger sister asking, like, where are you guys? So I answer it and I look out the window and I'm like looking for her. And as soon as I see her, I said, "Look at the clown in the window." And so she looks at my nanny's house and she looks at my uncle's house and she goes, I don't see you anywhere. Where are you?" And I'm like, "Well, look at the clown in the window. Like, you can't see me." And then finally I press my nose up against the glass and I'm just sitting there, looking and being all silly. And she's like, "I still don't see you." And I said, "Okay, fine. We're, in the camper. Like, you can see me, obviously." And then she turns around and looks. She goes, "Oh." So she comes inside. Well, I can't remember how the conversation went, but I was helping her in because the steps were kind of steep. My Uncle Joe, he's like, "Hey, come sit down." So originally I sit on like the cushion right next to him. He's on the far left, well, as you're facing it, far left side. So I sit on the cushion right next to him. And then my younger sister goes and sits on his right lap. Um, and then he's like, "Well, come cuddle me. Like, I haven't seen you girls in a while." So then I sit on his left lap, not thinking anything of it.
Yeah.
Well, my younger sister, it was like I said, about 9 o'clock at night. Our bedtime's usually about 8. I think that they're right where we are, if not an hour ahead. So we're sitting, we're cuddling, and then I finally, there was a pillow cushion like right there. There were 3 slots on the couch on this far right side. So my legs were over him and my head was on the cushion on this side. Like, it literally looked like this couch pretty much.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, before falling asleep, I don't know when I fell asleep. I just remember, like, anyways, I remember looking at the ceiling and seeing all of the, uh, not like mildew, but water damage on the ceiling. And then I remember, like, waking up to his hand down my pants. And I had to be more specific with it with an officer, but I don't think I have to be as specific about it.
Yeah.
Because it's still so uncomfortable. But the feeling of it, just like, you kind of like freeze up in a moment like that. You don't know how to react. And with them being like an adult, you're the child, you got to kind of like listen to your adults, but also at the same time, like, something is wrong. I can't remember if at that point, like, I opened my eyes in shock and like looked up at the ceiling, like, kind of like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" Or if I just was like pretending to sleep. Because I do remember rolling over, pretending to wake up, but I can't remember if I had opened my eyes out of shock or if I was still like trying to pretend to sleep. And then, um, so after that point, like, when I had kind of like I rolled to my left. When I kind of like rolled away from him, that's when he like kind of freaked out, and I could feel him trying to like button my pants back up after pulling his hand out. And so he got the button, but he didn't zip up my pants. Well, then, like, I waited a couple of minutes afterwards and I kind of like pretended to wake up, and I was like, "What time is it? Like, we should probably go to bed. I got a shower." So then I wake my younger sister up, and it turns out like she kind of experienced something like that, but not in a way that I did. So my younger sister and I go out of the camper. I pull her aside before my Uncle Joe comes out. And I'm talking to her and I'm like, "Did he like mess around with you at all? Like, did he touch you?" And she's like, "Yeah, he grabbed my boob." And I was like, "Okay," because, like, that's not okay. And at that point, like, I felt super dirty and gross, and like I just had to shower because it was not okay to me. So she goes inside with him. I take a left towards the shower and go and take, I don't know, like 5-10 minute shower. Well, at that point, when I walk out and I'm all dressed and ready to go to bed, I had seen him sleeping this way. There was a couch here against the wall and here, like a love seat right here. They were on the floor. They had made a pallet, and he was sleeping on the far side of the couch, and she was like almost right next to the couch. So I had climbed up on the cold couch. Like, my uncle would leave the AC blowing,
Yeah.
And they had leather couches, so of course it's going to be cold. I had no blankets because they had taken all the blankets to make that pallet on the floor. And I was just laying there, and he's like, you can come and get under the blankets with us. And at first I was hesitant. I was like, no, I'm okay. Like, I can sleep like this. I'm fine. I didn't want to be anywhere near him.
Yeah.
But I tried to wait it out, but eventually I got like too cold. I felt like I needed to cover up. And they had like 3 blankets under them and 1 blanket on top of them. So, I can't take a blanket
Yeah.
from them. So I went on the opposite side of him. He was like almost spooning my younger sister in a way while they were sleeping, and I had my back turned towards him, and I was like curled up into a ball so that I knew that nothing like that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the next morning when my stepmother came to get us, my sister and I kind of didn't really talk about it again until we got into a big blow up fight about it. But we go to my stepmom's house. I do remember that there was a lot of eating out. Like, they didn't really cook dinner, they just ate out all the time. So, it was soda almost every day.
Yeah.
It was fast food almost every day. You kind of just like get sick and feel sick.
Mm-hmm.
We had gone down to San Antonio, Texas, but before doing so, I do remember my biological father climbing into bed with me. And this was so I have a stepsister and another younger biological sister. She was 6 at the time, and I think my stepsister was 10, if I remember right. Anyways, my 10-year-old stepsister was in the bathroom showering, getting ready for bed. We were sharing a room, and my younger sister and my youngest sister um, was sharing a room. Before she had come out of the shower, he came and laid in bed with me. And at the time, I was on the phone with my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And my biological father had a very strict rule that there was no phones. Like, you could sleep with your phone right next to your bed, but you couldn't be on your phone, basically. And so he didn't know that I was actually on the phone with my boyfriend. I had my headphones in, and they were the ones with like the mic, so he could hear everything that he was saying.
Yeah.
And when he crawled into bed with me, he was like pulling my hair aside and telling me that I'm his baby girl, and just like kind of being weird. And it made me feel awkward, especially after what had just happened, even though he didn't know that that had happened yet.
Yeah.
So, um, I felt super weirded out, super awkward. And I just kept saying, like, yeah, I mean, like, it's great getting to know you now, just kind of like telling him what he wanted to hear. And then I gets out of the shower and comes in, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go to bed now. And then I crawl under the covers, trying to like get away from that situation because it felt
Yeah.
really weird. And like, for me to be weirded out like that and have that intuition that young, I think
Mm-hmm.
is just very like alarming.
Yeah.
We spent 2 weeks at the house before going to San Antonio, Texas. I think it was the night after that my younger sister and I had gotten into a fight with what had happened with my Uncle Joe. Like, she didn't want to tell anybody. I think she was too embarrassed to kind of tell anybody. And for me, I was like, no, this is wrong. Like, we have to tell mom tonight. Like, this is not okay. Well, she gets pissed off at me, storms away, and then I, storm off in the opposite direction. She goes to the front of the house where my stepmom and her mom are sitting out there, and I go to the backyard where the trampoline is. And I get on the trampoline, and I'm on the phone with my boyfriend, and I'm like, dude, okay, I have to tell you what happened because, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to
Yeah.
feel not like guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him what had happened. And then my stepmom tells me to get off the phone and come and talk to her. And I thought I was in trouble. So I was like, okay, I love you. I got to go bye. So I hung up the phone. We go out into the front yard. And then for me, I didn't know what penetration meant when she had said it. But she had asked me if my Uncle Joe had penetrated me. Like, that was her first question to me. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh my God. And like starts freaking out. And then her mom starts like saying, like, it's okay. Like, I've had this happen to me too. I know it sucks, but like, we have to report it to the police. We have to make a report out of this. Then she'd asked me if I knew what that meant. And I was like, what does it mean? And she goes, with his penis. And I was like, no, just his finger. And she's like, oh, okay. So for me, for her to act kind of like that, I was like, okay, I mean, I feel like it's still a big deal when you're that young.
Yeah.
But at the time, it wasn't like clicking. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I'm like, why weren't you more concerned? You know, like
Yeah,
as
for
any
sure.
adult, you'd be freaking out. You'd want to kill somebody.
Yeah.
If it was anybody's kid, like not even
Mhm.
just your own, you'd just be like, you nasty piece of crap. Like you should rot in jail.
Mhm.
Next day, she had called her local police, which where we were at when it occurred and where she lives is an hour apart from each other. So they had to make a report with the other where, you know, the incident occurred. So a police officer came over and talked to us. We had to explain every little detail. They had taken us to a safe house to where we also had to explain it all over again in every little detail. And then when we got to where the incident had happened, we also had to explain it in every little detail. We had to ride in the back of a police car to go and show him where he'd lived, what vehicle he drives, and then we had to show him where the incident occurred, which was only 2 blocks away, thank God. It was very scary sitting in the back of a police car.
Yeah.
Like, I had never done anything wrong, and I'm still like, I would never want to sit back there again, even if I'm just like joyriding, you know, like,
Yeah.
no. So after that had happened, we even had to write down every little detail so that they could match up our stories and make sure we weren't lying and making a false report. And then when they went to go talk to him, he had basically explained our entire story of from that morning waking up, going and seeing the plane fires, going to Family Dollar and then Allsups to go and see his wife, going for a walk. And then after we got back to the yard, that's when he was like, and then nothing else happened. And then the police officer was like, okay, is there anything else you want to tell me? And he's like, no. So then the police officer walks away. Well, as the police officer is walking away, it's in his report. Like, it's insane. He looks at the police officer and he goes, actually, I was being untruthful. And then told him that we did go inside the camper, but nothing happened. Yeah. And then he's like, okay, well, then at what point did you go back into the house? And he's like, oh, it was about 10 o'clock at night. They fell asleep. We woke up. Then we went into the house and fell asleep. The very next day, his mom had called my mom explaining everything that had happened.
Yeah.
Actually, you know who called the police? My mom called the police.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
It wasn't my stepmom. It was my biological mother who called the police. He goes over to my nanny's house and he's talking to his mom and he's like, I was so drunk. Like, I don't even remember anything. He drove that day. You'd think that if he was so drunk and couldn't remember anything, like, you can't drink and drive. So that's a charge. Especially with child endangerment because you have 2 minors in your car. He did have a little thing. I think it was vodka. I can't remember. I think it was called Sky Blue, but I don't know. I know that the little wrapper on it was blue. The lid was blue. And it was a clear liquid. Obviously alcohol. I had seen him take 1 sip out of it. Like, sip, not even like a full alcoholic chug. So that was a lie. My mom, during this entire like thing, I remember her telling me or telling the police officer um like, I really don't feel that my girls would have such a close relationship with him and then all of a sudden like hate his guts and not want to do anything with him.
For sure.
Yeah. So that really stood out. And I'm thankful that my mom had believed us because if it was like one of those situations where parents don't believe their children, I feel like I would have been struggling with it a lot more than how I am today with certain relationships. So after that, we go through, I think it was 2 full years of our trial. When I had gotten back from my biological father's place, I had ended up getting pregnant. So anyway, so a lot went into that. During the trial, they had mentioned my pregnancy. They asked me who the dad was. So then it kind of made it seem like I was a attention-seeking whore.
I get what you mean, but it doesn't. But I get what you're
that's where he was trying to make it seem like he was very manipulative. He was very just trying to get any little thing to get him not off the hook. What's crazy is the lawyer's name was the exact same name as my uncle. Yeah. During this trial, I remember my mom telling me oh, you can't tell anyone, not even you. And you were I think you were the third person that I had told. I just felt more comfortable talking to you about it, but it was also still very hard to talk about it because it was it feels like a betrayal when that kind of thing happens, and it doesn't, you don't outlive it. It never goes away. You will always remember how you felt. Certain details, it affected my long-term relationship of 1 year. Certain things that we did, I couldn't, I didn't feel comfortable with. I just felt very violated, and it was not at all his fault in a way. Maybe actions after that was, but yeah. After I had my daughter, it affected the way that I saw my stepdad and my brother. I automatically had seen them as perverts. Any male that came around my daughter, I felt was a pervert, even though they had never done anything to prove to me that they were a pervert. But in my eyes, even still to this day, it's not that they are a pervert at all. They've never shown me in any way possible that they could be a pervert.
Yep.
But it's still if my daughter's closed in a room with them, I have to go and make sure she's okay. I can't not make sure that my kids are in that situation.
Yeah.
So it's just really, it really affects relationships like that, even though I've never told my stepdad this or my brother this, because I feel it hurt their feelings. I don't see them at all in that way. It's just a mother instinct where you're okay, this happened to me, it could happen to them. I don't want them to live through the same thing that I had to live through. During the trial, his attorney had gotten arrested and thrown into jail for a DUI. So the case was dropped. My mom had called the police department here in town and started the case back up because she didn't feel that was right. It wasn't finished. And so once again, we had to go in, get questioned, everything like that. And everything had to be re-reported. We had to go through a case all over again, had to talk to the attorneys all over again. Thankfully, and his sentence lessened. It went from, I think it was originally 4 counts of 2-degree molestation or sexual assault or something like that. Twice, though. So there have been 8 counts total. Well, then it went down to 2 counts of 2nd degree, I think it was. I can't remember the exact. Anyways, he spent 18 months in jail, 3 months on parole, and then now he has to have a year of probation, which is already over with, obviously, because it's been 8 years.
It's such bullshit.
I really thought that they would have taken it more seriously and gotten him off the streets, or at least done some I don't know, maybe brain shock to literally to make him think differently and not see little kids as that type of stuff. He had to
castrate.
Move. Yeah, basically, because it's just, for me to know that he's still out there, I have him blocked on all social media, and I know that he's probably not a threat anymore. I have his parents blocked on all social media. I don't even want them seeing my kids, which is shitty, but I don't want anything, any pervert, any possibility of them seeing my kid in that way. I'm you're blocked. I don't even care. If I know how you are, you're blocked.
Exactly. That's the way it should be.
It's just, it's so, I don't know, it's rough, but thanks for watching. Bye.